Welcome everyone. Welcome to another Journalift webinar. The webinar is called The Power of Longtail Articles. And a short summary of what we'll be talking about is that longtail articles are articles that for multiple reasons continue to attract the audience and generate traffic even 3 or more days after they were published. Topic of longtail or evergreen content is becoming more and more relevant due to low use of rich media archives and their potential. Capturing value for evergreen content from evergreen content can significantly increase media's outlets traffic based on the reuse of already existing content. And I'm sorry for the lapse in the language. I'm just switching to English from Serbian. My name is Željko. I'll be your host. And joining me today are four of my guests who are Milena Tihojević, who is a support and marketing specialist at Smartocto, Bojana Trninić, project coordinator at Portal Capital, Miloš Stanić, sales and strategy manager at Smartocto also, and Ivana Pavlović, who is a web editor of economy portal novaekonomia.rs. Now, a short summary for our guest is Milena is a digital media consultant working with media outlets of all shapes and sizes with the goal of providing much needed knowledge about data and analytics. With more than 3 years of experience in the media sector, together with her team, Milena has been cooperating with journalists and editors, hoping to bridge the gap between the numbers and the written word. Milena, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much.
Bojana is a project coordinator of Portal Capital. She has been in the civil sector since a very young age. She's a magistrate of European studies and a great advocate of equality in every aspect. Bojana, also welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
Miloš is an awarded journalist. With his interest in new technologies, he worked for many years on the crossroads between journalism and technology in the tech startup Smartocto, where he focuses on strategy and clients. He was a journalist for Blitz. He has worked on projects with Creek and Bern, as well as Research Analytics Center of the Independent Association of Journalists of Vojvodina. Miloš, welcome.
Thank you, Željko.
Ivana is our last but not the least guest. Is a business journalist and a web editor of Belgrade-based economy portal novaekonomia.rs. In recent years, she has been training students in economic journalism and companies in media relations. She has experience in political communications, leading a communications team and organizing campaigns. She also worked with the Serbian NGO Center for Research, Transparency and Accountability, CERTA, Euroactive.rs, Economist, and VIP News. So welcome also, Ivana. And from this point, let's get into the meat of things and let's get into the questions. And the first question being obvious. How would you define long-tail content and traffic? And this is a question for either Miloš or Milena, whoever picks it up.
Yes, I will take this one. Thank you, Željko. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, yes, so as you said, the most obvious question, and you actually already did some kind of introduction by telling us that this is the type of content that is still relevant even 3 days after publishing. So something is happening even though this is something older that we published on our site. And it's basically a content that is always fresh and relevant, regardless when it was published. Sometimes these are articles that are, older than 3 years. Sometimes it's more recent, but it's older, okay? And usually this type of content is not connected to breaking news, which is kind of logical, you know, but these are kind of some things that don't age so fast. Okay, so these can be some tips or tricks, or, you know, some very big events that influence the whole world, you know, like vaccines against cancer, or some great human deeds like heroic acts, you know, something that people like to read and, you know, constantly actually consume. Now in Smartocto, we defined basically two types of this type of content, of this type of long tail content. And these articles are called Reborn and everlasting articles. And this is very interesting because, well, you will see why it is very interesting. But the Reborn articles are actually articles that start getting additional traffic again, even though they're, as I said, as we already said, older. We call them Reborn, or as we like to call them also Phoenix articles, because, you know, they're just like going again from the ashes. So as I said, they suddenly start receiving external, again, this is important, external traffic. So it's not that we did something, that we put it on the front page again so that it started getting traffic, but it's from external sources. And it's usually associated with, you know, some thematic themes, you know, thematic topics, okay? In the sense like seasonality, every year we have some celebrations, or, you know, how to change winter tires, whatever. So these type of things. And the second one, as I said, everlasting articles, that is a type of content that is constantly getting attention and that is constantly being read, okay? So these are actually the articles that became more popular than anything published in the past 30 days, okay? So they're constantly being, comparing, let me rephrase this. It's like a competition between your older articles and your new articles, okay? So they're competing against each other, and still this older content gets to be at the forefront. So these are your, you know, like gold champions, your champion articles, because they're constantly getting high engagement. And this type of content actually encourages your people, your readers, your audience to connect with your brand, to browse through more pages, to read more articles, to spend additional time on your site, which is, you know, very significant. And especially for loyalty, which is, we all know how loyalty is important to all publishers, and especially in this era when a lot of them are turning to subscriptions and to some, you know, membership models. So let's say that this would be what long tail content stands for. And what we, you know, should do is kind of use this power of long tail content, because it's usually not used so much, and we don't even know how much of a potential does it have. And it really does have a lot of potential, and it's great for optimizing our resources, okay, because we already put some effort into this, and, you know, it's coming back to us. It's like a return on investment, but a constant return on investment. So we should definitely always have this in mind.
Okay, thank you for that definition. So before we get into how specific portals have been using long tail content, Milos, can you tell us what are the key metrics and indicators that media outlets need to collect in long tail when using long tail articles, and which are the successful ones when capturing this type of traffic and content?
Okay, well, the thing is they need to kind of look at everything they look at on a daily basis. So everything that is usually important to them would, you know, apply to long tail. So in terms whether it's the number of reads or the number of page views or the attention time or even the willingness of a reader to continue reading more into website after reading the first one. So that would really depend on their business model. If the media outlet is more about going after reach and selling either banner ads, or mostly banner advertising, or working with Google Ads, for example, then they would probably be focused on the number of page views or on the number of new readers, for example, because that is the way these articles would help them expand the audience by looking at the number of people that were never before on their website, for example. If the media outlet is operating, for example, on a native advertising model, then the more important the average attention time becomes more important. So the way people read is more important maybe than the number of share reads. So it's how willing they are to explore, how deeply they are reading, something that is called read depth, or if you don't have it, then a scroll depth. On top of that, the average attention time. And of course, if somebody is pivoting towards subscription and trying to sell their content, and that is something we are it's becoming a thing even in our region here, even in the Balkans region. It already is a thing in Croatia, and some of the portals are started doing it in Serbia, and it will probably be here sooner or later. Then it's all about the loyalty. Then you should be looking on the let's say a mixture of engagement and loyalty. So look if your loyal readers, those people who are likely to become your subscribers, whether they are digging, for example, through Google to find these old articles because they are interested in those topics. So if you agree, I would like to show you some examples. So for people to see what are the successful long tail articles.
Sure.
I think that would be really good. I can share my screen real quick. Just a second. Hope this works, and it should. Probably does, right?
Yes, of course. Okay.
So this is an example from one of the people that are here from Nova Economia. Well, I think it's a good example because it's a kind of a regional example, and people who are watching this would make it easy to relate to this. So this is the title of an article that was published in 2019. So in spring 2019, all you need to know about, well, izvršitelj is most probably like a public enforcement officer. I'm not sure even if the Western countries recognize this institute, but all the things you need to know, and something that nobody have ever told you. So this is obviously a very interesting headline, very catchy headline. It's not at all like clickbait. It's more like, we will tell you about a stuff that you never knew. And you can see the key metrics here. So for example, this story had 11,000 reads since we started tracking it, which is probably somewhere in the spring, maybe it's maybe for a period of 8 months, for example. And this story has been there longer. And now if you look at here, you would see the lifespan of the story when it appeared, when we started tracking it, and over and over and over. And you will see that average reading of the story is somewhere around 44. And when you say 44 reads per day, that doesn't really have to, mean a lot. You would say, why is this successful if it's only 44 reads a day? And then if you look at the broader picture and take into consideration that this story has been out for a period of maybe 32 months, so which is more than 2.5 years, and then multiply the number of days with an average of 44 reads, then you come to a number of around 40,000. And that tells you how important the long tail is, and why it should be important for publishers, and how they get like really significant free traffic out of something that's been published over 2.5 years ago. Because the only reason here is because it's really optimized well. It's optimized well for search. It's well written. I've looked at the piece before looking into data. It's very long. It has all the information, and this is the right example on how to do it and then generate the attention from readers in years and years. And it would be really wise to look at this maybe from this perspective. Let's imagine that this article was not about public enforcers. If it was about something else, like maybe it was a native advertising piece, and imagine what kind of value would it bring to a media's client who paid for it to be published and paid only once and expected it to live maybe for a week or a couple of days. We also see that some of our clients, for example, have like expect a lifespan of an article which is 2 hours, which is, you know, it's really much shorter compared to this. And this would get a value to a client over a period of multiple years. And then if you look at from that perspective, then you see that why is it really important to have these articles or being able to produce this type of articles. Here's, for example, another one that's done in the same way, and it's the second best one, so to say. It's only been out there for around, let's say, maybe 6 months or so. But it's again about the electricity bills and the differences that you see between what you've really spent in terms of electricity and what do you have in terms of power. And it is a very niche topic that is, you know, not interesting to a whole lot of people. But if you look at here, it gets constantly 110 reads per day. And if it's going to live for a couple of years, then imagine the numbers of this. This is like the real potential, the real strength of Longtail. And also these headlines speak of how you should write them and what you should be focused on when you're creating these.
Okay, thank you for that example, and we'll maybe get back to some other examples if you have one. But because you talked about Nova Economia, I'm going to switch back to Ivana. Ivana, how do you assess which articles have long tail potential?
Hi to everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I'm really happy and glad that you've chosen these two types of articles and not something lighter by the topic. The thing I want to stress this is that the type of articles you showed don't strictly fit into the definition Milena gave. And that's very good for Nova Economia, because I make a distinction between two types of long life articles on Nova Economia website. One kind of articles are light stories about popular science, culture, literature, national history, national food, and we usually publish them on weekends or at the evenings when people come home. They do not want to read tough, difficult articles about criminal corruption, public spendings, and etc. And it happened by chance that one young colleague came to our office a few months ago, and his background is in advertising and marketing, and he likes to write that kind of articles. So we will open the space for him to show what he likes and what he wants to write about. So until that time, we haven't had that kind of articles that wasn't specific for Nova Economia. And the second type of long life unique stories are those hard research, hard-working articles about topics we are familiar for: subsidies, public enterprises, budget analysis, public spendings, privatization, entrepreneurial stories, etc. The thing is that, unfortunately, journalists, the number of journalists and media houses spending enough time of this kind of story is not that high, unfortunately. And it's luckily for us, donors want to support 1 year, 2 year, or even 3 year research about health system, education, etc. And that's the reason why we have this kind of a story that's attracting more and more readers. The other thing is, as you probably know, is that the transparency of public of decision makers, of the government and other state institution is on a really low level. So it's a paradox that actually the things and the topics that should be normal, or at least you could find data easily in any other country, in Serbia, it's an exclusive research. So I think that's the main reason why this kind of a story is getting more attention in 1 or 2 year period, because I know it's someone could not believe, but why you cannot explain your electricity bill? I believe that in Germany, England, for any people in the street, there would be no mystery about explaining electricity bill, but it seems that in Serbia it's very difficult to find data and precise answers. So that's the reason why this article is getting so much attention. And we are trying, I hope that you understand that it's not our goal to have light articles. I understand that need of the people to read about food, sport, famous people, etc. But our goal is to promote good economic business story.
Yeah, and everybody judging by the name of the portal will assume that. Yeah. That's natural. So Bojana, how important are long tail articles for Capital?
They're very important. We didn't knew that we have long tail articles till we start to analyze everything, and they're very, very important for us, especially because we are some kind of specific media that work with economy topics, and we are quite rare in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and probably in the region. There is a couple of media who do this kind of things. That's for us is very important because our articles are not just daily news, like Ivana said, but they're always some kind of analytic and even some kind of research journalism that show us some statistic, and we are trying to be interesting statistic and very easy reading for the regular and people who are not experts. And it's connected with the daily life. That's also very important. So we have a lot of long tail articles, and actually our I think that we have, like even I said, some articles that are 2 years ago published and still are active and still are interesting because there's some kind of analytic things and some kind of information that's always interesting for the people, because we wrote about economy, and if you wrote about economy, you need to touch politics also, and that's two topics are always connected and interesting for the readers. But maybe just to mention that besides regular readers, like persons, we have a lot of other media who are actually follow our work and share our information and our news and articles, and that's also one of the good things, and why, and that's also why the long tail articles are very important for us, because other media reported it, even also some kind of, we are credible source of information for any kind of institution who wants to know something about it. So yeah, they're very important. And now when we know that, we are actually trying to make more articles that kind that they're going to last more than one day.
An interesting thing when we look at Capital is that around a third of the traffic comes from articles that are older than 3 days. So you have that already going for you. But staying with you, many people call long tail articles, SEO articles, because of the majority of the traffic comes through search engines. Now, when you create an article, do you have it created with that goal in mind? So is there a tactic behind optimizing this kind of content to stay relevant for longer?
Actually, for now, 3 years, we are trying to make some kind of optimization of the articles so that they stay longer. But before that period, we didn't do that. But still, the articles before that period are interesting and they're using right now. So maybe that's because we are dealing with the topics that nobody else are dealing, or maybe because the journalists also have not just analytic, they also have some kind of sense how to write articles to be interesting for. That's one of things. But yes, we are actually really, now we are starting to getting more and more attention to optimization of the articles, because that's some kind of really good tool that we can use for our future work and work till now. But what we are trying to do and how to, because we follow the topics from all the time when we write, and what we are trying to do, how to make the older articles interesting for the readers. We mention as we wrote in last year or last month about this topic, and we also give the readers and to our public some kind of flashback of our articles that we actually made before, and they're again interesting, and then they're optimized, and that's very important.
Yes, so you're backlinking also to older articles, which is fabulous. So talking about making decisions when editing the content, like you just said, question for Ivana and Nova Ekonomia. So when it comes to making editorial decisions on how you write articles, do you pay attention to long tail potential? So are those articles being written differently in some way?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know what to say, Nova Ekonomia is in last few years more and more supported by the donors, and we are proposing the topics we want to cover, and we are proposing the topics in the national interest. That's one, and the second interest is business oriented, I admit. The goal is to attract more and more readers following Nova Ekonomia and reading good quality research pieces, analysis about economics and political economy in Serbia. So in a way, the topics we are writing about are dictated by the project proposals. So let's say we just have, let's say, a good hunch for a topic. Competition is unfortunately small, as I already told you. And the third, as I mentioned, the level of transparency, public transparency is so low that any piece you write about health system, education is always getting hits.
Okay, cool. So Milos and Milena, can you show us any more examples of best performing long tail content within the Media for All project?
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen again. We have more, and most of them are like really interesting. And not to just to be fair to the others, I guess I choose the Capital and Nova Ekonomia because they are here, right? So this one is from Capital, and this is a different kind of way because I read the article. It's a different kind of story because it's more on the investigative side of journalism. So it's a story that surely requires like more work, and in regard to what Ivana said, it could be something that is normal to obtain that kind of information in the other countries, but in Balkans doesn't have to be that way. So it's something that requires more effort on the side of journalism, but as you can see here, it really pays off in the longer run, because it tends to stay popular over time and time. And what I haven't said you about the previous ones, for example, those two stories that or three stories that we showed had an average attention time of 2 minutes, while the website's average is around a minute. So that also means that these stories are really good for engagement, because they have double the time people spent reading them. Of course, one of the factors being probably the length of the story, because those stories have, more meat kind of. And this is a really good example. And the other good example is, well, I have to just, is also this one, which is similar to the previous one, because it's also kind of an investigative piece. And also there was a story on Capital, also investigative story about how many companies are in Republic of Srpska, and how many companies are there with that has just a single employee. So it's kind of like how many shell companies are there. So from what we see at Capital, it's mostly in-depth analysis of investigative journalism into things that, well, most probably what they already said, what other news media would not look into really.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bojana, so when we talk about investigative journalism, it obviously exerts a little bit more effort going into writing these articles. And do you think that effort that you put into these stories usually pays off by keeping these stories trending for a longer time? And or, for example, did you have an example of something which is kind of a normal article that is done in a with much less effort, trending better?
Actually, I think that these investigative articles are more interesting. And as I mentioned before, we write about economy, and then when you write about economy, you need to write about politics. And that's also what's very interesting for our readers, because if we are just talking about economy, it's a question, there's a question mark who is going to read all the articles that we wrote. But here we want to show not even criminal corruption, any kind of abuse of the money, public money. Actually, it's our focus. And if we compare with when you mentioned that articles that is not puts much effort in them, they're also very good. But this investigative journalism is quite recognition of the capitalist. That's I think that's our mark, and that's we are actually famous about it, and that's the reason why we are very
successful at that. Yeah. Did we just? Yeah. Okay. So we lost the connection for just a second,
okay.
But Bojana is back. And Bojana, keep just prolonging the question. So, how much can you sustain the output of such articles, in the sense that is it realistic to have such in-depth articles being produced on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, or how much other content do you need to put out?
Of course, we need to put we need to have other content, also regular news, information that people want to see and hear. But what we are trying to make easier our job is that we follow the topics, and we always come back to check after some period what's happening with this topic. Is that, for example, these two news, is anybody punished because 11 million is spent for the lights in a tunnel? I don't know the word in English, but yeah, for some that's not normal, and then we're trying to follow all the topics and then inform our readers and come back again to that stories. And that's some kind of how we trying to make easiest job for the journalist. But yeah, we need to have other content here in the.
Okay. Going back to Nova Economia, even we talked about also in-depth articles and investigative journalism, which Capital is doing. You're also doing very specific and very targeted articles, as you said, very specialized in that. But taking a look at the most significant Longtail articles, some of them are lighter in terms of topics. So do you expect such a results from such stories, such as, you know, I don't know, CV of Nikola Tesla or female knights in Serbia? Do you create having in mind that they will be popular for a longer period of time?
Of course not. If you ask me as hardcore business journalism, I started in print. In a way, it insults me that a tough work is in a way lagging after this kind of light stories. But the thing is, we need to have a bit of a culture, a bit of a science, and I must say that it's our policy that this is acceptable level of clickbait content and headlines, and the only rule except the topic you are covering is that you must not cheat your readers. So our readers need to get what they are promised in the article. So if you're having Nikola Tesla in your headline, you need to have something about his biography in this article, or about female knights. So it's actually, it's about the book about female knights in Serbia. So it's not an empty tabloid content. It's just a thing that we gave a bit provocative headline for a weekend morning reading with your drinking coffee. And then I'm calling this kind of articles, it's like, let's say it's a first top 10 long tail article, Smartocto identified. But what I like more are the second 10 coming behind these. And if you see what they are about, it's about health system, it's about salaries, subsidies, different laws, policies in Serbia, or some nice entrepreneurial stories about successful people and businessmen in Serbia. And why am I insisting on this? Because as colleague from Bosnia was saying, maybe they are specialized in investigative journalism. We are not. We are small daily media company, and we cannot afford to spend a lot of time on research. We need to have accurate information. So we are focused on information, news, and some kind of explanation. Let's say it's like it's what's called entrepreneurial journalism. So the idea is to give answers on how to find, how to pay, how they spend, because there are a few very good media houses in investigative journalism that they're trying to cover those criminal and corruption cases. It's not our idea to deal with that. And the thing is that people want to read that, but we cannot have criminal and corruption stories, because that's rejecting business community. No one wants to. There is not a client that wants to be on your cover page with the criminal story. So it's a way difficult. So I think that's a reason why we're having this kind of a light story, to at least to try to make an impression that we are not dealing only with corruption, that we are giving to our readers some nice quality story about literature, tourism, Serbian monasteries, or whatever. And I think if you ask about the strategy for this next 10 top, let's say that, stories, I think that it's, I think, good to maybe to brand this kind of a story as a special product. My goal for the next year is somehow to have Nova Economia recognized as a top media house dealing with health issues in Serbia, because we are in last 3-4 years, we wrote a bunch of articles and news about spending public money only in health sector. So we, in a way, we'll have to think how to do that. Maybe Smartocto could give us an advice how to brand this, how to make a nice present with the nice silk scarf about health system in Serbia. And because that's a potential for long tail stories. I think nothing is unfortunately changing in health system in Serbia.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see if we have any other use cases from other Smartocto clients on utilizing the power of long tail content. So can you give us some examples of your other clients and how they use it?
Yeah, sure. So, well, for example, a specific use case that we have with our clients is republishing old seasonal content, or at least drawing some inspiration from it. So, for example, when you have a region in a country and people in that region would like to know, for example, which town holds the best Christmas festival or Christmas market. So this is, very seasonal content that will be read from, I don't know, let's say November, when, the holiday spirit starts to kick in, to, let's say, January. And media reports on this 1 year and keeps track of their performance daily. And when it pops up as a Reborn article, so as a Phoenix article, as I said at the beginning, it's time to update it. So why is that? Well, because it already has a good position on the search engines, or create a new one because readers are interested in this topic again. And after you update or create a new story, you can then freely give it like a prominent position on the homepage, because that readers will be interested in it. And this is only one example. There are like numerous, but for example, another one would be that, for example, one of the publications that we analyzed recently had almost 50% of all of their monthly traffic coming from Longtail. And this is obviously because they're working hard on it, of course, and putting a lot of effort into creating articles like this, because sometimes, these articles require a lot of resources, because sometimes they require a lot of innovation. There are a lot of examples like this with Washington Post or New York Times, where they do this in the midst of elections, to track the election process and everything. So what others can do if they don't know where to start is to take a look at top 100 articles that got traffic in the past 3 days. Then identify out of those 100 which are older than 3 days. Then we can take the most successful ones and kind of analyze them and try to figure out what they have in common. So, trying to detect some patterns, a type of headline, maybe a common topic, or something third. So when you find out what is the common denominator, then you just apply those in practice. And it's a lot of times it's like this. You have to experiment. You have to, it's trial and error. See what works, and if that works, continue doing that. Or see that something doesn't work. Okay, let's switch to another idea, let's switch to another topic, and so on. So this would be some of the use cases.
If I just may,
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I just may add, like we do that all the time actually, and that's the reason why we have success with the Longtail articles, because we want to say that they have some kind of delay effect, because people return to them over a long period of time. They have impact on some political elite or some kind of event in that period. But again, when they repeat or when we talk about that topics, we get that, and then we update them. We updated the article again, and it becomes popular. Sometimes even more popular when it's original written in that period, and that's very important, because sometimes it wasn't a good moment for that article, but then you just make some kind of makeup, dress up, and then it's again good and even more popular than it was in that period. So yeah, that's like really good.
Add just
Yes.
a couple of use cases real quick. So the real life ones which people actually can try. So we have this client that is working on a newsletters, and newsletters are kind of either becoming big or staying big still. So an idea would be to check like once a month which stories are everlasting, and then to put them like in a separate section of your newsletter, which would be called something like others like these stories, or maybe you would like them as well. These are the evergreen stories of our website. Just saying to the readers, yes, these are the old stories that everyone else are still reading. And it doesn't have to be like in a daily newsletter. It could be in a monthly one, for example. And also when it's tied, another use case is it ties it really to the money and to the revenue of news media. And this is what we saw happening in Sweden. So media would look at stories that are older and still have traffic, and let's say that they are operating on a freemium model of the paywall, so that when they publish, a part of the articles is for free and the other part of the articles are premium articles which are locked behind the paywall. And they would, for example, find the stories that started their life as free stories but tend to get significant attention of the readers through time, and then lock them up behind the paywall because they were once, free, but people kept reading them, and now they become premium content, and vice versa. Content that was created for subscribers only, that was not really popular as expected in the long run, gets unlocked and gets available to everyone. So in that kind of, they will grow their subscriptions based on the long tail content, because people will pay to read stories that were once free. And on the other side, they would let some of the premium stuff for the masses, for everyone. So that would be a use case as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you all basically just to give your opinion, because we talked in a previous webinar on monetization, and of course media outlets write articles for driving traffic to themselves, but some articles are being PR sold, basically paid by other clients. So do you find that clients also recognize the power of long tail articles, or they're looking for something more dynamic? Milos said something at the beginning, or mentioned a couple of points in clients also getting value from more value from long tail articles. But what is the actual reality for Capital and Nova Economia? Ivana, you can go first.
Thank you for that question, but unfortunately, no. And I'm so desperate about that. Most of the articles they sent are, I'm choosing the nice, polite word, not that they are quite boring, not interesting, but there are some sending really good pieces, but they're so conservative. They do not want even a word or a letter to be changed, especially in the headline. So even good quality interviews, no matter they are business, PR, corporative stories, but they're in most cases they're rejecting any intervention in their content, not only about the headline, about the lead, anything. But what's encouraging is our young companies, startups, IT entrepreneurial companies, they're having blockchain companies, they are sharing more, they have more, they're more sensitive about that. But the thing is that there are edgy stories because it's forbidden to, most of those industries are not allowed to be promoted. So they write good stories, but it's not always, you sometimes you're asking yourself whether it's whether you're allowed to have that kind of an article.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the situation with on your side, Bojana?
We have actually good feedback for the Longtail stories, for the companies who wants to be promoted on our website and others. If we talk about bigger companies, they always have some kind of, they're more sensitive. They have people who are well trained for that, and they actually prepare everything that you don't need to change or to intervene, or it's they prepare for your website everything that they want. They're trying to actually to be part of our model. That's the great things that's happened, but of course it's not reality every day. We have, like Ivana said, other and different kind of the things. And a couple of days ago, we also have some our partner who said, actually, that was funny situation, who said that have some kind of very VIP information, and they want to show that in our website. And of course, and they didn't want to share us what's that. They will send us, for example, tomorrow, but the night before that, we actually had that information because we got it before then. And then that shows actually that Longtail stories and really good journalist work, that's credibility. And actually readers gives you credibility because they trust us. They see that we are consist in the topics. We follow back all the time. We continue we actually checking our work and our information all the time. So actually readers knows that. And everybody who wants to deal with that, they know that they need to deal with our readers also. And I said deal, it's not some kind of dangerous things to do with them, but yeah, that's our public. If they want to be part of our public, they need to be, they need to have credibility. And then the long tail stories actually give us credibility. And then we find out and we try to more work on that.
Okay, from Smartocto, do you have any kind of, wider picture of this question? So whether clients are recognizing the value of long tail articles, I mean, clients of media outlets, not your clients.
Yeah, of course, we spoke to the media all the time, and we try to help them, get a sense of how important it is to them, and then to communicate it in a right way to their clients. So we are trying kind of to nudge them, hey, look at your stuff, and then look again, find the ones that are really good in the long run, and then just maybe use it to upsell to your clients. Tell them, okay, this, for example, this topic that you campaign for a year and a half ago is still popular. Maybe it's now time to do another article, you know, in as a native advertising campaign. So, but we still believe there's like a lack of, not interest, but lack of knowledge on the media buyer side about what they can really get from these stories. And I'm not sure if they have the same kind of perspective as we do have. To what I said at the beginning, 40,000 reads over 2.5 years is really a lot, but I'm not sure if like the media buyers, those who buy native advertising pieces in media outlets, really understand that. I don't think they don't, but if the point comes, and the point will come, when every single click will matter, especially a quality click that carries a long attention time and etc. They will come to that slowly but surely, I guess.
Exactly. I think it's about moving the emphasis from browser to the user and that engagement. So a lot of the times they're focused on page views and how many page views does this story have and stuff, but it's actually that human interaction to content that we should focus our attention to, rather than, you know, just chasing browser events.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question again to you all, and we can go from Bojana, Ivana, and then back to Milena and Milos. So what would be your top advice for your colleagues in other media outlets when creating long tail articles, when thinking about creating long tail articles, if they haven't so far? What, you know, just a summary of your top advice when doing that. Bojana, you can start.
First, don't run away from that kind of stories, because it's not totally different article from these ones that you write regularly. Try to connect it with older articles that you have, and that shows that viewers, the readers are interesting. I was interested for that, and try to make it every day interested. That's my point of view, because we sometimes forget how the media is effective, because like we always have in the office some joke that the cockroach survive atomic bomb, but if you want to kill the cockroach, you just take the newspaper and kill it. And that's the power of the media. And use that every day, because all articles that you wrote can be reborn and phoenix, and how you can call it, like Milena said, that's some poetic things in our job. Yeah, but yeah, don't run away from that. Just that, and for the end.
I love that. Cockroach and newspaper.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Actually, I use it every day.
Thank you. Ivana, your top advice.
I think that hard work is paying eventually, not so quickly as we would expect. But I think after some time, even your clients, advertisers are not only seeing, but they are more valuing your good quality work. But you just need to to keep patient for a year or two, I'd say, but a few months at least of a good hardworking, a few people focused on what you're doing, both with your colleagues from the advertising section, and I think that results are notable, not only in Smartocto analysis, but also in Google Analytics, in your colleagues' review, etc.
Okay, thank you for that. From Smartocto, let's start with Milena, and let's give some advice that you would give to your clients when they would think about creating long tail content.
I would say that like when we look at how much content is created every day, let alone like more than 4 million blog posts, and that's just blog posts like created every day. And if you want to cut through that noise with quantity, I would say this is not a great strategy, but you should always focus on content that's in line with your readers' interest, and that kind of that is usually what makes it become less dated. Okay, and I already mentioned some of these, but kind of some rules to go by is when you can to turn to behavioral metrics, because they give you kind of a more information. They give you a whole picture of what is happening with your content and how your readers are actually consuming your content. Also, kind of innovation is sometimes very desirable to people. You know, the novelty is attractive to people, and people will always notice when something is different. So, you know, these special reporting projects that I know take a lot of time, but they can pay off in the long run. And some experimental ways of working sometimes can be very beneficial. And of course, this innovation needs to be in line with your audience's needs. And of course, Longtail creates loyalty, and this is what Boana mentioned. So, you know, these things often go hand in hand. And when we know that loyal readers consume 5 times more content than our occasional readers, and this is also like based on the research that actually Milos did, so then you really see the value in long tail articles. And kind of something that I found on the internet, it's very nice for this type of webinars, that it's often better to fight these more honed in battles to achieve a higher return on investment. So this is something, you know, we should oftentimes think about.
Thank you for that. And finally, Milos.
Yeah, I would probably get back to a way of analyzing that is famous by the BBC, by the British BBC. So the way you can start out things, and Milena mentioned a fraction of it, is to look at the top and bottom 10%. So whatever you do, so you, for example, you want to create more long tail, let's look at the articles that got traffic, for example, in the past month, and focus on the last very last 10% and the first 10%, so the best ones and the worst ones, and try to find those common denominators and see what are the things that works. It should be like the headline type, for example, and this is a really practical tip. Is it a headline which consists of numbers? So, for example, 10 things you should know about, or is it a headline that has a question in it? So, for example, how long the winter will be this year. So try to find things that these best articles share, and then apply those when writing the next time. And of course, at all the times, try to look at a bit more context. So don't try to narrow it down to one metric such as page views. Try to take into account others as well, such as loyal readers, the reading time, the page depth, or how many stories people read in a single session. So some of the stories, it might be deceiving. Some of the stories might not be very good at pages, but could be really, really good on other metrics that might be important to your media business. So basically, the tip is that when you look at it, try to look at a broader picture. Try to involve more context when you're analyzing stuff.
And those were all fantastic advice and tips. I'm gonna say just thank you to everybody for joining me for this webinar. Thank you for your time and expertise, and all of your experiences that we shared with the audience today. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching. And you can check out the recording of this webinar both on the YouTube channel and on the Journalift website. This is it for 2021. This is the last webinar. We'll see you back here next month or so in 2022, early 2022. We're continuing these webinars, and have a great day and happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.